Hey, power people. Welcome to Renewable Rides, powered by VECKTA. I'm Gareth Evans, the CEO and founder.
And I'm Dan Roberts, head of sales. In each episode, we'll uncover the latest trends, learnings, challenges, and triumphs relating to the energy transition, on-site energy, and sustainability through the experiences of our inspiring guests and team here at VECKTA.
So get ready for an exhilarating adventure into the fast-paced world of challenging limits, adapting purposefully, and empowering co-creation to accelerate the energy transition with those that are on a mission to create a more resilient, profitable, sustainable, and thriving energy future. So let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Renewable Rides. And today I am honored to be joined by Howard. Howard is a principal at Thomas McKinlay and the author of the book Simplicity from Complexity. And Howard and I crossed paths in our times in Perth. Howard is still based there. But what I loved about Howard was he's always not afraid to speak his mind, challenge the norms, and get people thinking differently. So welcome, Howard.
Thank you, Gareth, and an honor to be here.
Well, Howard, we always start with the question, like, what are you passionate about? And I think this can open up lots of avenues for us to go down. So what is it that gets you fired up?
Somebody expressed it to me yesterday as the art of thinking, right? Of actually thinking things through, right? And I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, The Stupidity Paradox. It's, it comes up with a concept it calls functional stupidity. And as an explanation for why everybody goes with the flow and kind of the Cliff's Notes, it says there are 4 reasons. The first is cognitive. If you go with the flow, you don't have to think too hard. The second is motivational. If you go with the flow, you don't have to try too hard, right? The third is emotional. If you go with the flow, there's a lot less angst, right? And the fourth is cultural. If you go with the flow, you fit right in, right? And I see functional stupidity right, left, and center, and it's never sat well with me, as you know. And hence, I look at the world and I wonder, are people forgetting how to think?
Yeah. Well, I think especially in the days of ChatGPT, it might get even worse than maybe what you've experienced to date. So we should unpack that. But you obviously don't have a Perth accent, Howard. Where did this passion for thinking come from? Like, where did you grow up? What was your background? What kind of led you down this path?
I'm a proud Yorkshireman. All right. So I grew up in near Castleford in the north of England, and people always say, Yorkshire people are blunt to the point of rudeness. What you see is what you get, and and that's the way you're brought up. Really, is to say what you mean. So to me, that's normal, right? It's and today's world of everybody being so careful, right? It should be evident to you where somebody's heart is, right, and whether somebody is genuine and authentic. And I think needing to pretend to be someone that you're not, right, doesn't sit well with me. And I think the other aspect to think about is. My dad was kind of a semi-professional rugby league player.
Oh, wow.
And there was no money in it back in the day. So he was making his way in the concrete industry. So we moved quite a bit when I was a child. And, and I'm not daft. I've always been academically gifted. And, so if you're kind of coming top of the class and you're the new boy at school all the time, you're a target, from day one. So I suffered a lot of bullying as we moved between, various schools. And eventually I grew into my size and strength, and bullies don't like it when you fight back. But again, that combination of things led me to concluding that, well, what's the point in trying to fit in with anybody else? I might as well be me and, be my authentic self. And I got a scholarship to go to a private school to do what they call A levels in the UK. I have no idea what they call that in the States. And but there I was a scholarship boy, and I knew I was a scholarship boy. So same effect, really. Not fitting in. And at university, I quit after a couple of years because I was bored rigid. And I do maths in my sleep. I didn't need another few years of it as an engineer. So I went and worked as an operator, and then I went back to university to finish the degree, but then I was out of sync with everybody else, because I'd worked for a spell. So I guess in conclusion, I've never really fitted in anywhere, and and I've got used to that. And from our previous experience that I never fitted in there either, right? So hence this idea of, if I don't fit in, then therefore I'm not going to accept the status quo readily. It may be right, but I'm going to think it through, and I'm going to try and work out what the right answer is first. And I'm not going to go with the flow, and I'm not going to support what I perceive as stupid.
That what you shared there, Howard, really resonates. Makes me think of one of our core values of challenging limits. And it sounds like you've done that most of your life. Maybe you can share a little bit about how you've leveraged this mantra of not fitting in and not going with the flow into your professional life.
The current Thomas and McKinlay is a good example, really. It's, I think, I've never found sales comfortable. Because of that story I just told you, I don't handle rejection that well, right? I've kind of experienced too much of it, if you like. But it's a necessary part of being an entrepreneur, isn't it? If you don't sell, you don't eat.
Yep.
Right? So it's been finding a way to navigate that, and over time, I came to realize that there's a value in kind of the technical high ground, that even though people may not like it, if they know where to come when they need the forensic truth about a situation, right, then they will come back for that. So as a result, we don't have to do that much marketing and sales because we have successfully created that reputation for accurate technical insight. And, when it's getting a bit much for people, the phone will ring and everyone calls me H, either Howard or Thomas could be a first name or a surname. So they're always mixing them up. And hence H has become, kind of my nickname, if you like. So the phone will ring and somebody will say, H, we need you to take a look at this. Right. And that's how the work comes in. So by, not being afraid of telling the truth, right, and and not being afraid to be controversial if necessary. And I must admit, I sometimes like to pull tiger's tail and be controversial anyway. Then that at least has established the reputation for this is where you come when you want the real answer.
Mm-hmm. Can I dig into that a little bit more? I like to read up and study a bit on the psychology side of business, and humans are emotional beings. I'm curious your experience in going through that process and uncovering things that people may disagree with on an emotional level, that they don't want to face the facts. How does that manifest itself? What do those conversations look like? How do you tackle those challenges?
Really interesting question. It's I believe that I have Asperger's syndrome. So a relatively mild form. I couldn't speak until I was 5 years old.
Wow.
Right? My You know, do you watch The Big Bang Theory?
Yeah.
Seen some episodes, yeah.
Sheldon Cooper. Yeah. I'm not crazy. My mum had me checked. My mum did have me checked because I couldn't speak. I was making noises, but I wasn't forming words. And the doctor says that there's nothing to worry about. His mind is running ahead of his mouth, right? Mm-hmm. And eventually, his mouth will catch up, and he'll be fine. And indeed, that turned out to be the case. So we knew at that time that there was a problem, but it was nothing major. And so it's only in recent times when neurodiversity is more openly spoken about, right? That I'm able to say, yes, I have a mild form of Asperger's syndrome, but it's not a problem. But and it's both my, if you like, my disability and my superpower. Right? It's what equips me to think clearly. But on the other hand, people who know me, they notice that I can't leave a word uncorrected. If somebody uses the wrong word in the wrong context, I'll correct it, right? And I can't help myself. It's a symptom of the condition. So I've kind of noticed that, and I feel I've had to use my IQ, right, to build up my EQ. Right. So I've got books here. I've got my bookshelves above me, and books that have simple titles like How to Start a Conversation and Make Friends, because that's where I was starting. But that is what I have done. I've studied it. I've dug into it, as you say, the psychology of how you interact with people, and used my IQ to build my EQ. So I've eventually got to the stage where, even when I'm talking to people about, serious things, like in one of our investments, I had to step in and dismiss the developer of the project because he'd been embezzling funds. So I gave him the choice between court or signing over his units to me so that I could use them to raise the money to replace what had been embezzled. Wow. But I was able to speak to him in exactly the same tone of voice that I'm now able to speak to you, right? So, mastering, that level of emotion has been the work of a lifetime, you might say. And, earlier on, I would react much more emotionally to a confronting situation, which of course does no favors in terms of getting a confronting message across. So I've really had to work on that EQ in order to be able to deliver confronting truths, right, in a way that people will at least listen. They say life's a mirror, don't they? What you give out is what you get back, and you'll get a long way by smiling. Right? So I may be saying that I'm afraid I think you're stupid, and I'm surprised you live to be this age. But I'm saying it with a smile, and there's an increased chance of the message getting across.
Yeah. And in our industry, Howard, you've spent a lot of your career on the oil and gas side, and you've kind of made your own transitions, and you've written your book. I love the tagline in your LinkedIn profile: "Simple insights to save millions and the planet." That definitely connects with ourselves. I think a lot of people don't realize that by doing the right thing, it ends up being the profitable thing. What were kind of those moments of truth for you, and what's the focus now?
The early moment of truth in my career was having quit university. I was working as an operator for Dow Chemicals in Germany, Stade, just outside of Hamburg, and working in their R&D department. And I was lucky enough to get taken under the wing of an American expat, who was working for, well, not really an expat. He was on secondment, and who was working there. What a chance fortune. David Carr was his name. Now retired, but we're still in touch. And he actually sent me a Christmas message like he does every year, and he said that he'd read the book and that he really liked it. It was very well written. And imagine that, right? The guy who was my mentor for a year all that time ago, right? Reading the book and liking it, that was a real fillip, at the end of 2023, and a much needed one, I might say. But working with David, he switched me on to engineering. Right, and he switched me on to analysis. He introduced me to the factorial design of experiments, right, and how you do things, how you do trials properly, and how you switch it on. So, that was a real moment. And then after I graduated, I worked for Exxon. And Exxon Chemicals, so not so much oil and gas as hydrocarbons would be a better description of my career. And because I think that contrast between downstream and upstream is really important in terms of the level of analysis that is required, right? But working for Exxon Chemical Olefins, working on an ethylene plant, I had the opportunity to get involved in establishing a practice that we called lost opportunity, right? Which has since become an industry standard and certainly an Exxon standard. And that gave me real insight. The Exxon Floor and Park were running a real-time optimization project on the ethylene plant, fast Fourier transforms to identify steady state, advanced stuff way back then. This is the late 1980s, early 1990s, so way back when. And, but a guy who joined at the same time as me, Richard Selman, he developed an offline model of the plant in Lotus 123. Good grief. I think this was on an IBM AT PC using Sidekick, to move data between Windows version 1 point something, go figure.
Yeah.
And, but anyway, Richard had built this up. So I took it and I worked with it, and I developed these 6 rules of thumb, and I wrote them on a sheet of A4, for, it was Exxon, sorry, letter format, and, for, optimizing the ethylene plant. And I had a really good relationship with the technicians there. They like me, I like them, and sat down with them and said, let's follow this and see what happens. And we broke the shift production record. And so I stayed on and sat down with the night shift and said, you'll never guess what the day shift did. Right. And how did they do that? Well, they followed these 6 rules of thumb. And then we'd broken the 24-hour production record, and we kept that going, and we broke the monthly, the quarterly, the annual production records. And we took an 1,800 ton a day ethylene plant to a 2,100 ton a day ethylene plant, and without capital modification.
Wow.
So, 300 tons a day of ethylene, right, is worth a hell of a lot of money. And without capital modification, great, and, but unbeknownst to me, that meant that the RTO project no longer had a justification, right? So, it got cancelled, but they also had a expansion project called, I won't tell you the name because it gives too much away, I guess. But the expansion project also got cancelled off the back of that. And I had no idea of that. It wasn't until I arrived in Australia and somebody who'd been working on the expansion project said, oh, yeah, I know who you are. You're the guy who got the expansion project cancelled.
Oh, wow.
All right. And, I had no idea of that. But the insight was there are much simpler ways of doing things. Right. And that was a real insight as well. And that pattern's continued really. is seeing that why do people insist on making it more complicated than it needs to be, right? And hence my earlier, well, I don't think we were on records when I commented about management being a disease that industry has caught. It's and we end up where we kind of default to discussion and debate rather than facts and analysis. Right? We default to looking for creative solutions to things instead of first doing a critical analysis of the situation. So, lots of managers are looking after things that they don't technically understand. They have budgetary responsibility for that area, and they're dependent on the technical experts in their team to inform them. So they'll convene a meeting, right, when they're trying to make a decision, but you don't do analysis in a meeting, do you? Right? The only contributions you're really going to get are people's cognitive biases, right, of what they think the answer is. And people will often dress it up as engineering judgment. I really don't like that expression, right? I'm not interested in your opinions, however you dress them up, right? It's who's gathered the facts and who's done the analysis. And only then do we actually have something to discuss. So if we don't do that, then we end up having these debates, discussions, creative thinking about what the solution is. And that tends to lead to addition. And if we use the safety as the analog, then we know safety by addition is a bad thing, don't we? The more you add on, the more you have to look after, the more likely something is to go wrong.
Yep.
Inherent safety is the preferred way to achieve a safe outcome, right? If it isn't there, it can't bite you. Right? If you eliminate the root cause, it's better than adding things on to prevent the root cause. Okay? Well, the same applies in virtually any situation if you think about it. If you can eliminate the root cause of a problem, you don't have to add lots of stuff on in an effort to control it. So if you don't do that analysis to get to the root cause and eliminate it or address it as effectively as possible, you will end up adding on more and more and more and more in an effort to control what you don't understand. And hence, it's no wonder then that things get ever more complex. If we keep adding on, we're eventually going to run out of the resources to liquidate all the compliance requirements that have been added, aren't we?
Yes.
And if we're trying to satisfy all these compliance requirements, how do we know the things that really matter are getting done? Right? Because people will tend to do what is easiest and leave what is hard until last, won't they?
Yeah.
So there's a real risk there that the most important things are actually ending up in backlog and the situation deteriorates. And I think I'm tempted to say if you look at the world, right, but that may be taking, I'm not sure that's taking it too far. If you look at a lot of situations today, you look at it and you go, well, isn't that what's happening? Right? That, people are, making it more complex than they need to be. And a lot of the things that really matter aren't getting done.
How are you seeing that playing out in the energy transition today?
Now you're opening Pandora's box. I would take hydrogen as the classic example, right? And trying to create a hydrogen industry, right? This idea that hydrogen is an energy vector, right? No, it's not. Hydrogen is a chemical, right? And when you use it as a chemical, right, then fine. It's that's the appropriate use of hydrogen. But to take 3 times the amount of renewable energy to produce 1 unit of hydrogen energy, which you then have to store and transport and store to then reconvert it to electrical energy, right? That just cannot be thermodynamically efficient in any way, shape, or form. But people will say, "Oh, but it doesn't matter. The renewable energy is free." Right. So the efficiency therefore doesn't matter. But that's just an utter fallacy, isn't it? Because of all the investment that is needed in doing that. So, that's an easy example of where a lack of critical thinking is playing out. Governments, industries, they're used to an economy based on gas as the source of energy. So to them, it's an apparent like for like replacement, isn't it? Where it's anything but. So that would be an easy example. And don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-hydrogen, right? At all. It's we use approximately 94 million tons of hydrogen a year in various forms in industry as a chemical, right? All of which we preferably need to replace with green hydrogen. Some of that will decline because a lot of hydrogen is used in hydrotreating, right? In the petrochemicals and refining, industries. So the size of that market should decline, over time. But that's still a substantial market which needs to be addressed by green hydrogen. But that's the appropriate use of green hydrogen, not creating an unnecessary use for green hydrogen. And Michael Liebrick's hydrogen ladder says that a lot better than I can. But you asked for an example, and I've given you one.
It's great. I love it. I love the candidness.
Yeah, I love the candor as well. How do you see that playing out in practice? I mean, you got a challenging thought or a challenge to the current line of thinking. A lot of people will dig their heels in and be resistant to that. So how do you go about constructively influencing change in these areas that you're bringing about a challenge to the status quo way of thinking?
You have to open people up to the benefits of analysis, to the benefits of critical thinking, don't you? So, and again, I draw the same parallel with so-called artificial intelligence. Again, there's no such thing as artificial intelligence, right? It's a discipline, not a thing, right? It's what we're doing is machines are learning so that knowledge becomes automated, right? The machines aren't intelligent, right? And generative AI, it's not intelligent. Okay, it's transformers are working out the sequences within large data sets, right? In order to allow you to have an apparent conversation with a machine. Right. But the machines are not intelligent, right? You still need to think about how you are going to use so-called artificial intelligence. So again, you've got to open up people to the idea of this art of thinking, right? Creative thinking, right brain, critical thinking, left brain, right? And we've got to get people to see that it's not a controversial view. Right. Because I am disagreeing with you, you might not like it, right? But it's actually based on, real thinking, right? And you've come to a situation because the same degree of thought has not been applied. And that's the angle to take. So I'm not criticizing you. It's not a personal attack, right? It's let's just think about this, right? And so when I'm working with clients who have engaged us with a view to simplifying things, and I sit in on meetings, I'll sit in for a while, but eventually I'll begin to intervene, and I'll say, hang on a minute, right? Before we start, who's gathered the facts? And that's what we get, pin drop. Right? Silence. Okay. Because they haven't gathered the facts. Yeah. Saying, well, we should gather the facts before we continue this discussion, shouldn't we? Yeah. And then my next intervention will be, okay, now we've got the facts. Who's done the analysis? Because you don't do analysis as a committee, do you? Right? It takes, an individual or a relatively small team of people, right, to sit down and work away at it, right? Not constrained by time. Okay. Okay. Now we've done the facts and the analysis. Now we've got something to discuss. Now we can have an informed discussion. So that's the way I come at it. Is I'll say, okay, well, let's go back to basics then. Right. Let's establish the facts. Right. And let's establish how this analysis was done. And without naming names, and back to the subject of hydrogen, again, here, there's a report running around, which done by, a fairly senior advisory company here in Australia that, governments are referring to, or more accurately, management consultancies that have been employed by governments are referring to, right, to inform hydrogen strategies. But when you dig into that report, the numbers in it are garbage, right? They're based on absolutely no analysis whatsoever, right? But it's become adopted, right, without that critical analysis ever having taken place. And I actually engaged with one of the companies that's been referring to that report, recently as part of some pro bono work I'm doing, and the representatives of said companies said to me, "Oh, we don't want engineers involved; they'll just overcomplicate things." And I think the two things I'm going to point to: a report which has no basis in fact, and then an attitude on the part of the people that are using it like that, says it all about why we're not really getting informed thinking going on, and what needs to be done to get informed thinking going on, which is take people back and what are the facts? Who's done the analysis? How was that analysis done? Was it appropriate? Because there's so many reports running around out there which reflect the bias of the people that have done it, right, or the expectation of the customer that's commissioned it, right, and we can't make good decisions on a basis like that.
Yeah. And Howard, you've obviously done a lot of deep thinking on this in terms of your analysis. What's exciting you most about the energy transition? Are there any trends or technologies or opportunities that you see that align with the tagline of simplifying insights to save millions and the planet? What kind of aligns most with that?
Just the basics, really, right? It should be self-evident that if you're going to generate electricity directly, right, renewables, right, then you need to use it directly. So again, the more we can electrify on the demand side, right, then more we create the vehicle for using that, renewable electricity directly. That must be a self-evident efficiency gain. You've all seen the Sankey diagrams about the amount of waste heat that comes from generating electricity by burning hydrocarbons. Well, there's an immediate, 60 to 66%, saving in the amount of energy, let's say the amount of fuel you need to consume, right? Right there, isn't there? And this is what I mean about keeping it simple, right? And doing the basics. Okay. So again, if that's the demand side, then on the supply side, well, the more we can do to generate electricity from renewable sources, the better. But that introduces intermittency and capacity factors and, overbuilding capacity and overbuilding transmission. And you look at that and you go, well, that can't be a good idea either, because I often describe net zero as global greenwashing, right? Business as usual without the emissions. Yeah. All right. But that's not the objective, is it? Sustainability is the objective. Okay. So overbuilding things flies in the face of sustainability, doesn't it? Yeah. Right. The impact on biodiversity is going to be manifest. Okay. So we don't want to overbuild. That's an inefficiency. Okay. So you look at it and you go, well, why do we need to generate on a macro scale when we're dealing with renewable energy? Because there's no efficiency gain in scale, right, with renewable energy, right? Solar energy, wind energy, right, is modular. right? And using it at the micro scale has exactly the same efficiency as using it at the macro scale. So we've no need to generate at the macro scale. Ergo, you generate that electricity at the micro scale, preferably at the nano scale, at close to the point of use as you possibly can, right? And then at the micro scale to produce more or support more concentrated uses of the energy. And if you do a lot of that build at nano and micro, and then you overlay that with distributed renewable energy systems, right? You're coming much closer now to a much more efficient means of electrical generation. Okay, you're not going to get there 100%.
Yep.
Right. So if you therefore want to avoid using any hydrocarbons, then preferably we're looking at some form of hydro, right? Either natural or pumped. And then I think any reasoning adult, right, would look at it and then say, and you are drawn to nuclear, right, as the as the minimum waste. Yes, it's toxic waste, but it is the minimum waste and it's the minimum input. So from a sustainability point of view, remember sustainability is the goal, not net zero. Yep. All right. From a sustainability point of view, you look at that combination of nuclear and hydro with renewables used in the way that I've described. I'm looking at that and going, they're all technologies that exist.
Yep.
Right. They don't need to be invented. That it's a straightforward way forward. I'm not saying it's cheap. Right. Yes, I'm afraid you are going to have to pay a bit more for your energy. Suck it up. That is the price of not using the atmosphere as an open sewer. But if that's the price of a sustainable future, I'll pay it. Right. And but that's what I mean when I say all of the technologies we need are right there. Let's get on with it. And yes, if new technologies come along, which help us, and battery technology is developing all the time, so that will be an obvious help with short-term intermittency and capacity factors and so on and so forth. And again, you get into batteries and redox, as opposed to solid state, etc. By all means, let's take those on board, and advances in geothermal, right, will also help us, won't they? And so by all means, take them on board, but let's make sure they're technically ready before we use them.
Yeah.
Right. And not try and jump the valleys of death on the commercialization paths, because we'll end up paying a lot higher price, if we do that. So I can see a simple way forward, a clear way forward that we just need to get on with and get a lot of competing ideologies and vested interests out of the way, So, but again, to promote that, then I'm back to the argument of fine. The contribution that I personally can make is to get people thinking critically, right? So that they can see that for themselves, and I'm not having to stuff my ideology down their throat, right? It's I'm allowing them to follow the same path of reasoning that I did.
Amen. That's I think that a lot of what you said there resonates, and we're seeing that a lot. Before we kicked off the recording, we said we felt 2024 was going to be a breakout year, and I think we're starting to see businesses in particular realizing some of the benefits of those nano and micro systems versus just buying into, say, utility scale projects or utility scale power purchase and the fundamentals behind it. What are you seeing in the business landscape of companies seeing this pathway?
This is me thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're asking good questions, therefore I have to honor them with thinking about the answers, right? It's a very mixed bag, isn't it? All right. I agree with you. There's an increasing realization of the possibilities, right? But I would say they were smaller companies, right, where the change is less fundamental, right? easier to adopt, or startups, younger companies, so smaller, younger companies that are, more open to that way of thinking. I think the larger blue chips are really struggling, right, with it, and because it's so fundamental for them. But I do think that they increasingly realize there is a need, and therefore they are dipping their toes in the water. I would question the degree of commitment, right? But they are dipping their toes in the water. So I think I agree with you. An increased uptake at the small, medium end of the market. At the larger end of the market, the realization is there, but the progress isn't there. And I think we need to stimulate that progress. And that for me is where I'm going to use the term that everybody recognizes, even though I don't like it. That's where artificial intelligence comes into play, right? Is if you want to get your mind around these bigger problems, I don't think you can. I think it's too complex for human cognition. This is where the discipline of artificial intelligence comes into play, right? And building that analysis capability that allows you to see, right, that while the individual clean energy technologies, the economics might not get up on their own, right, as part of an integrated value chain, they can do, right? And hence allow that process to change companies' thinking to see that instead of competing for their own vested interests and their own self-interest, if they will collaborate in a value chain instead of being one part of a supply chain, that integrated approach allows the value to be realized by everybody. And hence we accelerate the uptake of, micro generation in support of those integrated renewable energy industrial precincts, which again form a much more efficient and effective way of helping industry transition. Right? Does that answer the question?
I think so. Yeah, that's the inertia of the status quo is felt at a much greater level of the blue chips, as you stated. So I think it'll take time, but
exactly, that is why we're here. That's our job, isn't it? That's your job as VECKTA. That's my job, right? As an advisory person, as an advisory company, is we have to provide this insight and open up companies to the possibilities. Yeah, because it is an opportunity to be way more efficient, right? I mean, back in 1997, the Kyoto Protocol, you get back to it. One of the main drivers there was energy efficiency, wasn't it? Right. It's a shame more countries didn't sign up to it, but that doesn't mean the model isn't still valid. Right. And energy efficiency is a huge opportunity as part of the energy transition. And yes, the base energy may cost more, but you don't have to use as much of it.
Yeah.
Right. If you seize the efficiency opportunities which are in front of you here, right, through proper energy integration. And again, I can go back to my background as a chemical engineer and UMIST and pinch technology and energy integration and bring it back. There's so much potential in there which we've never properly utilized. So I guess this is what's getting me excited, is the not so much the technology itself, so much as the application of it, right, and making the world that much more efficient than we currently are. And I think we have this obsession with scale, that has blinded us to efficiency.
Yes.
Right. And the opportunity here, where there aren't the benefits of scale that you used to enjoy, introduces the possibility of, well, okay, now let's take the opportunity to be efficient.
It's a great feed in, Howard. I love that conversation. I loved hearing your thoughts on it. And I think we always like to ask, like, if you could be any energy technology, what would it be and why? But it actually doesn't have to be an energy technology. Like, what piece of this puzzle gets you most excited, and why would you be that technology?
Already answered, right? It would be efficiency.
Yeah.
Right. It's the opportunity to be more efficient is manifest. And if you think about the title for the book, simplicity from complexity, and the tagline is achieving more by doing less. Mm-hmm. It's the very definition of efficiency, isn't it? It's like lost opportunity, the modeling of the ethylene plant and so on. Efficiency in many ways has defined my career, and a lot of my challenges is, why aren't you more efficient? Why are you making it so difficult? And efficiency doesn't just apply to energy, does it? It applies to effort, in the way you do things. Why do you make things so much harder than they need to be? And our data that we've collected over the years, Thomas and McKinlay and my previous companies, as they've been, bought from me and so on, I've still kept hold of the data, gives me a very large data set. And what it indicates is that, approximately 60% of all the work that people do is a waste of time, right? It's not value adding. It's not bringing, anything to the bottom line, right? It's all caught up in these, additional compliance requirements, which aren't actually adding any value. And we labor under this misapprehension that compliance produces performance, right? No, it doesn't. Compliance constrains performance, right? But good performance will always produce compliance, right? And we've lost sight of that, and hence we end up doing a lot of unnecessary busy work. So yeah, my excitement for 24 would be efficiency. That would be the technology that I would want to be. Efficiency in terms of energy, but also efficiency in terms of effort and how companies work. You need to be, if you want to make profit from smaller margins, right, then you yourselves need to be more efficient in the way you do things, don't you?
Yes.
Yep. Right. Absolutely. Howard, is there any particular quotes that you reflect back on or that help drive you forward?
Loads. I love here's to the crazy ones. All right. I've actually got it here on the, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules and they have no respect for the status quo. You can praise them, disagree with them, quote them, disbelieve them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them. All right. Because they change things, they invent, they imagine, they heal, they explore, they create, they inspire, they push the human race forward. Maybe they have to be crazy. How else can you stare at an empty canvas and see a work of art, or sit in silence and hear a song that's never been written, or gaze at a red planet and see a laboratory on wheels? While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Brilliant.
And that's the full poem. That's not Apple and Steve Jobs plagiarizing a bit of somebody else's work, and I find it borderline annoying that everybody identifies that with Steve Jobs and Apple, where it never was. All right. And so on. I know it from Jack Kerouac, but even then I'm not absolutely certain it was Jack Kerouac that wrote it. And I think another favorite of mine is the Mahatma, Mohandas K. Gandhi, right? The world provides enough for every person's needs, but not every person's greed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that is a really important quote to think about in these times, because I think that's true. The developed world is greedy. We consume way too much, way more than we need. I've never understood 2-for-1 offers in supermarkets. Right? I only wanted one. Why are you encouraging me to buy double? Right? It's inevitably going to cause waste. Why don't you just give me one for half price? Because they want the volume, don't they? So they can leverage their suppliers and get their cost of supply down. Right? It's got nothing to do with value for us. But it's a great example of over consumption and greed. So if I have to pick two quotes, right off the top of my head, that would be they would be the quotes.
First Jack Kerouac reference on the podcast, and I love that.
Yeah, and it was a great way actually to sum up the conversation. I think. Are there any other crazy people out there that you think we should be interviewing on this podcast? What would you ask them?
I haven't thought about that, at all. I get stuff from all sorts of people. It's there's friend of mine, Charlie Blake runs a company called Neon Leadership. I don't think he'll mind me saying that, he's dealing with MS and some of the insights that has given him into, real authentic leadership are worth hearing about. Who else? I mean, loads of names. Who am I to tell you about prominent names in the energy transition? So, but people often say to me, wow, you're so smart, which makes me uncomfortable. Again, it's probably that Asperger's thing. I find, I kind of don't like rejection, but I don't really like praise either, right? Because I find both, uncomfortable. But I would say, I'm not sure I am that smart, but I am very well read. Right. And, and I think, a lot of people don't read, widely enough, and hopefully it's evident that I'm not claiming all these ideas as my own, right? That I've quoted books to you along the way, and and so on and so forth. So I tend to get a lot from my reading, rather more than identifying with individual people.
Yeah,
but. Somebody who, do you know who Jeffrey Can is?
No.
Bits, Bytes and Battles. All right. Jeffrey would be worth you interviewing.
Yeah.
I can make the introduction. I mean, you can find him, right? No problems. But, if you need me to make an introduction, then by all means, Jeffrey is a deep thinker. You'll enjoy an interview with Jeffrey.
Brilliant. Howard, this has been amazing. I really appreciate, 1, the vulnerability, 2, the openness, 3, the candor. We've learned a lot, and it also, I think, validates a lot of our thinking. I think sometimes you have a game plan and you're not sure whether it's the right one, but I think everything we've heard today really kind of supports that. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Any closing comments?
My favorite word has 5 letters, begins in T and ends in K, right? THINK. Think.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to get people, thinking, properly. All right. Understand where the place for creative thinking is to generate possibilities, and where the place for critical thinking is to reduce those possibilities to practical courses of action.
Yep. Love it.
Well said.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Great episode of Renewable Rides. Speak to you soon. Well done. What did you make of that conversation?
Yeah, I appreciate speaking with folks like Howard, because we need more people that challenge status quo thinking, that challenge going with the flow. I really liked that stream of the conversation, talking about going with the flow or not going with the flow in his case. The thing that was interesting is, and it was by no means by design, but having him share his analysis and the thought that he's gone through in the energy transition, and arriving at the fact that local on-site energy generation and storage is the most fundamental piece. I mean, I've been hearing a lot about people, not just in energy, but in all walks of business and life, talking about first principles thinking, and him breaking that down and coming back to the fact that that is where we need to be. Certainly resonates with what we're doing here at VECKTA. And I valued hearing someone that's candidly put more analytical thought into that than I have, arriving at a similar conclusion to where I have. So that was a bit validating. Maybe there's some personal bias in validating my own thinking, but that was something that resonated with me. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think for me, the complexity simplified approach is super critical to this transition. I think energy is complex, but how do we make it understandable, interesting, engaging? And I think, how do we support people to make decisions based on data and intelligence and, years of research and analytics versus emotion, or versus the developer that knocks on the door the most trying to sell them solar? That's not the right outcome. How do we do this in a really purposeful way? And how do we streamline the whole process? So I love that. I think it resonates with the way we think, the work we do. It's very interesting that, unplanned, several of our guests in the last, few months have all come to the conclusion that utility scale is not the best way forward in their minds. And I think maybe the world's starting to figure that out as we see more and more challenges with that. And certainly our customers are seeing it with them being called out for greenwashing and not adding additionality and not reducing their own emissions and all these challenges, as well as just it's hard to build these projects because of the permitting and the space constraints and all these sort of things that demand is outstripping supply, and so the costs are also going through the roof. So it doesn't seem like a brilliant solution, but it's going to take all of these things coming together, isn't it? So I really enjoyed it, and I certainly loved his closing quotes, and agree that we need to figure out ways of being more sustainable, not over consuming, and being proud of the misfits, as it were, and making sure that we extract their intelligence and the value that they have and not put them down.
Celebrate the crazies.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, fantastic conversation.
Yeah, appreciate it, Howard.
We receive a lot of questions from business leaders around the world wanting to learn more about the energy transition, what is possible, and where to start. So to help you stay informed and up to date on best practices, opportunities, risks, and success stories, we created an industry newsfeed at VECKTA.com/news with all our podcasts, blogs, and newsletter. Check it out and connect with Dan, myself, and the VECKTA team to learn more. Cheers and have a good one.